Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Missy Hicks. I am the co-founder of Wonders and Worries and the director of the Registered Wonders and Worries Provider Program and your host for the WonderChats. We are excited to have you here with us today, and I'm thrilled to have Kim and Deanna back again. You may have heard them before, to share with us some information about working with children whose parents have an incurable illness. So I'm excited about this. As you know, we've transitioned to the every other month WonderChat for an hour and a half. So we have an hour and a half with Kim and Deanna moving forward from here. Housekeeping to start with, though, is as usual, do the Q&A feature. So if you have a question, please type it in there. I'll be moderating those. And if I can slip it in and ask them like right in the moment, I'll do that. Otherwise, I'll hold it and make sure your question is answered out loud for you. So I'll monitor that. We do not use the chat feature in our WonderChats, so just be aware of that. And then the recorded webinar will be on our website in the For Professionals section, probably early next week. And then we'll just monitor your tech issues. You know, like I'll watch for things on Deanna and Kim's end. Usually, sometimes the audio changes and it's on your Wi-Fi on your end. So we'll just kind of watch that. You can always Q&A me if there's something going on there as well. Go ahead, Kim. Evaluations, you know, I'm sure if you've been on these before, you heard me talk about how important they are and that we look at them and they really like drive how we shift things. One of them being, we wish we had more time. So here we are with our hour and a half WonderChats. So it's not required, but we certainly would appreciate your feedback. When you leave the meeting, the link will pop up to the survey for the evaluation. Would love that feedback. If you miss the pop-up, you still have another opportunity. It'll come in an email tomorrow for you. So you only need to complete one. You don't need to do both, but we certainly would appreciate it, like I said. Regarding PDUs, I know some of you listen just for professional growth, and we love that. Absolutely, join us anytime. But we also can offer the PDU for these. So what you'll do is you'll listen to the webinar today. At the end of the presentation, there'll be a QR code. You can click on that, or you can go on our website and it'll say register for WonderChat PDUs, CEUs now on our website. You'll purchase a post-assessment. It's just, it'll be $15. We do $10 per hour. And it'll be $15 to take that quiz. And then you'll get upon successful completion of the quiz, you'll get your certificate emailed to you. And so that's how the PDU process works. So you can look for the QR code at the end. Kim? And so I'd like to turn it over now to Kim and Deanna to get us going on our WonderChat for today. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Missy. So Deanna and I are really excited to focus on this topic with each of you. And we'll be talking about helping children and teens understand and cope when a parent has an incurable illness. So just a little bit about each of us. I am one of our program directors here at Wonders and Worries. I've been a child life specialist for 29 years. And with Wonders and Worries, 17 years. And I'm based in Austin, Texas, and I have the privilege of getting to support our team kind of in the greater Austin area. Deanna, how about you?
Hi, I'm Deanna Smith, and I am program manager in San Antonio for the San Antonio and Houston teams. And I have been a child life specialist for 16 years and with Wonders and Worries for 4 years now. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
Great. Well, I'm going to set us up with just kind of helping us all be on the same page in terms of what Deanna and I are thinking about and what we were thinking about as we created this presentation. So we are thinking specifically about families where a parent has what we're calling an incurable illness. And by that, we're thinking that it's a parent who's expected to have a shortened lifespan with likely medical decline over time. It could certainly be up and down, you know, with periods of stability and then change, could become terminal at some point along the way. And so some of the diagnoses that are in our mind and some of the family situations that we might mention are stage 4 cancer, ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, Huntington's disease, MS or multiple sclerosis, dementia, HIV/AIDS, end-stage kidney, heart, and liver. And actually, as we were preparing this, I didn't add it to the slide, but I was thinking of a few families where there'd been a tragic accident, and that had changed the trajectory of the parents' medical situation. So I am going to turn it over to Deanna.
All right, so going on to having conversations about the illness. So in this section, we are assuming that there's already been an initial conversation that the parent has already had with the child about the illness. So this is ongoing. There's been some kind of progression or change in the illness. But all of this applies with the initial conversation as well. So start talking earlier rather than later. You know, this is all stuff that we know that we're doing. So sometimes this is great reminders for us to remind families as well. We know that children and teens benefit from honest education. So when the treatment isn't working or there's a progression of the illness, the sooner they know, the better. Now, we do know that parents sometimes need that processing time as well when they're just given the news. So yes, taking that into consideration, giving them a little bit of time to process, and then being able to sit down and have the conversation with the child or teen. It's important to share the treatment and the comfort plan. So what is this going to mean? Is there going to be continued treatment? Are we stopping treatment? Is this going to be going to hospice, in-person hospice, in facility hospice or at home? What is that going to look like? And including the child or teen in decisions on daily care and how he or she can contribute. That's probably what we hear the most, right? For the little ones and the teens is, what can I do? I want to help. And that can be anything from, okay, just making sure mom has water or making sure she has a blanket, or for the older ones, it might be some more chores or making a meal once a week, or just including them as much as possible in decisions. Repetition is key. So we know that children need and adults need information repeated often so that we can remember and continue to process all the information. And so it's helpful sometimes reminding parents that it can be difficult to keep repeating the same thing. And they're like, I don't understand. I already told you this. Why am I repeating this again? But that repetition is so important, and they're processing just little pieces at a time. It's best to give small chunks of information at a time. So instead of, all the word vomit of this is everything that's happening now, breaking it up little pieces at a time, on what's happening now in the immediate or the next couple of days. Encourage open and regular communication. So we love we encourage weekly family meetings. And so this might look like, say for instance, every Sunday at dinner, that's going to be our weekly family meeting. And we're going to talk about the week. So here's what's going on with my care. Here's who's going to be coming in and out of the house. Here's who's going to pick you up from school. Here's who's going to make sure that you have dinner or get you to baseball practice. Kids want to know how their basic needs are going to be met, right? So this is a great time to lay that out for how that's going to look for the week. And then the wonders and worries jar, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and I'm going to touch on that in just a little bit. Go ahead, Kim. So conversations about illness. So in the initial, let's say it's a cancer diagnosis, for instance, in the initial conversation about the illness, we like to use the weeds analogy, and we use this book. Here's a picture from the book, from the Hope Tree. And in this book, we talk about how if you have a garden of beautiful flowers, and then these weeds start growing up, and weeds keep growing and growing and growing, and they crowd out the other flowers. And we have to get rid of those weeds so that the flowers can keep continuing to grow and bloom. So ways to get rid of the weeds are cutting them, pulling them, using weed spray. The weeds, like the cancer, we have to get rid of cancer, and those ways might be chemo, radiation, or surgery. So when there's a stage 4 cancer, then we talk about how sometimes there are some weeds that might be in areas that are harder to get to. And they can't be destroyed. So maybe they're in a part of the yard that's hidden under a fence, and we can't quite get to all of them. Or maybe they're in some soil that's not great for growing. And we can't get rid of those. So, however, to let them know that there still can be a healthy garden and yard, even with some weeds. The key is to destroy as many weeds as possible and limit the spread of others to control or manage the weeds that can't be destroyed. Another way, and I love, we use so many visuals with that you can draw that out for the littles to see as well. Team activity or sport. So this is another analogy that we like to use. So asking the child or teen if they're involved in any type of team activity, like a sport, marching band, theater, anything like that. And then use that activity to explain the analogy. So the idea is that in a team activity, each member of the team has a role and understands how to work together with other teammates. So for example, let's say in soccer, so each player has a specific position and they understand the goals and the rules. But then we ask the child, well, what if we were to put 50 people on the field who have no idea how to play soccer or why they are even out there? Would they get in the way or disrupt the game? Yes, the teammates represent the healthy cells and the random people represent the cancer cells. So the random people aren't trying to cause problems, but they likely will. So then the goal is to remove all of the people from the field. So talking about with stage 4 cancers, I'll say, what if we can't remove everyone from the field, except for all the remaining people that are there are in one place and they don't move around? Could the game still be played? Possibly, maybe with some modifications, similar to adjustments or modifications that someone might make in their cancer treatment. And then we have the tiger analogy. So this one comes from the book, Nana, What's Cancer? And in this analogy, cancer is described as a tiger who has escaped his cage. The tiger, representing the cancer, isn't as scary if you know how to fight it or outwit it and get it back in its cage. Some ways to outwit cancer might include taking care of your body by eating healthy, exercising, and getting the right medical care. So the lesson to teach them is sometimes we can't always beat the tiger, but sometimes we can put it back in its cage to prevent it from harming us. And then the last analogy here is with cell phones or internet, talking about a poor or static connection. This is a really good one to use with an ALS, MS, even kind of brain or stroke. And talking about how if you're on this, you're talking on your cell phone to your friend goes in a tunnel and it's staticky and you're trying to talk and they only hear bits and pieces. They can't hear the whole story, everything that you're trying to say. Same thing if you're at home and you have an internet connection. So like right now, if I had poor internet connection, I'm trying to talk to you, you're getting bits and pieces and you're not understanding what I'm saying, talking about how the messages from the brain have a hard time getting to the mouth or out to the body. So just some general advice. Again, I know that a lot of this is, you guys know, all this, but ones that I just feel so important, these are great reminders to remind our parents that we're working with. Honesty is best. We say that, well, yeah, no big, yeah, we know that, but I can't tell you how many parents are very honest with their kids, but they cannot tell them or have a really hard time with telling them that, the medicine's not working, that I'm dying. It's hard, it's really hard for them to get that out. So just reminding it that honesty still is best. Being sure to name the disease or the illness, and remember that they all process information differently. So I like to tell parents sometimes that you have this big heavy conversation, and then your little one, young school ager, might just go off and start playing with their toys, and you're like, I had this big conversation, they don't care. Well, that's not the case at all. We know, right, that kids process through play. And so reminding them that that's okay, that's normal, that's how they're processing. Also reminding them that, you might have a very emotional child, and you might have another child that just stares at you and is like, okay, and that everybody responds differently, and it doesn't mean that one is right over the other. And continuing to keep children and teens informed about the illness. So that's where those weekly meetings come in handy. What is new? What are the things that are changing? Finding out the answers to their questions. So reminding them all the time, for ourselves and for the parents we're working with, that it's okay to say, I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know. Let's find that out together. Encourage the family to maintain their routine and schedule as much as possible, allowing the child again to help in the parent's care. I know we touched base on that. Encouraging them to ask questions, and then to find a trusted adult for support. So maybe in addition to the parent that's ill, finding another trusted adult, whether it's in the family or outside of the family. So some conversation starters for parents, like some that we like to give parents is, okay, these are some good ways to get this going. There's something important I want to talk to you about. Or when you said, example, Mom, when you're better, I'm hoping that we can go to Disney World next year. It made me think that maybe we should talk about how my cancer is getting a lot worse. Or I was wondering what you know about, I've noticed you have been curious about, and some things that have been happening with sorry, I think I cut out, so just making sure. Some things that have been happening with my body and with the tubes, and I just wanted you to be aware of this is what's happening now. So on to some activity ideas. So this is where I was talking about before, the Wonders and Worries jar. Again, I know we've presented about this in other WonderChats, but it's just so good that I have to put it back in there again. So we encourage almost all of our families, use a jar, a box, a bowl, it doesn't matter, at just some place to hold questions or worries until the family and child can focus on those questions together. So I like to encourage families to have this in like a kitchen or a living room, and just have strips of paper and markers laying right there, ready to go. And then as worries or questions pop into the child's brain, they can write them down and put them in the jar so they don't have to keep dwelling and thinking and thinking and thinking. And then maybe it's those weekly meetings where we go through the jar and are slowly going through them together and talking about it. So again, it just provides, you know, this and providing other opportunities for the child to express their worries and their concerns. A few other activities that we do. One is this ALS body map. So you can see this little outline here. This activity could also be used with stroke, Huntington's disease, again, any of those neuro. So what we have here, it's a way to help the child identify, talking about different symptoms they're seeing with their parents and where in their bodies. So you can use a pre-cut body outline or have the child lie down and trace their body and use their own body outline like on butcher paper. And then we encourage the child to color the parts of the body outline where the illness has affected the family member, and then discuss the problems the loved one is having making these parts work. So in this picture here, you can see the legs are colored in, and you know they can't walk really well anymore. The hands are colored in, it's hard to grasp items. And then the mouth, that the illness has affected the speech. And this is a great time to discuss any medical equipment that that family member might need and why. And then talking about what bothers the child most about these changes that they have noticed, and talking together about ways to manage the stressors. And encouraging the kids to share how they are still able to spend time with their parent, even if it looks different. And that's where on the back, you can flip it over. And so on the head, where we talked about the speech is affected, writing down what other things that we could do together. So maybe we can type or text back and forth if speech is hard, or like the speak to text, you know, and then same thing with the legs. What are things we can do together? With the hands, what are things they can still do together? How can they help? The next activity on this here is the marble maze. So with the marble maze, this is a good one that we like to use for MS, multiple sclerosis. So in this activity, it's to help them understand more about how messages are sent from their brain to the rest of the body. So it can be hard to understand how that works without seeing it. So using a marble maze to talk about messages, that's going to be the marbles traveling from the brain, that's going to be the top of the maze, to the muscles, which will be the bottom of the maze, through the spinal cord. So first we'll set up the maze normally and watch how the marbles travel through it without an issue. Then to depict MS, we'll have the child set up a maze where there's holes so the marbles drop through and don't match up. So then the marbles get stuck, or they're just stopped. And then that's where we can talk about the MS scars, how they form along the myelin and the spinal cord, where the messages travel. And that these scars slow down the messages from getting from the brain to the muscle. And that's what causes a lot of issues. So again, just another one to have that visual, right? We love the marble mazes. All right, So we do have a video link in here, but we're not going to use that video link today, but it's just more for your reference. I'm pretty sure you're all familiar with blood soup, where we talk about the blood, right? So we have the marshmallows as the white blood cells, the red hots for the red blood cells, the Karo syrup for plasma, and rice for the platelets, talking about how the blood works. Well, a modification that we like to use for this, for immunotherapy. So again, it's typically a stage 4 cancer diagnosis when they're going through immunotherapy. We'll create a bag of blood soup. The only difference is this time we'll, in our bag, use everything else the same, except we're going to use miniature marshmallows to represent the white blood cells. So, and the nerds to represent the cancer cells. So next we'll discuss how the T cells, which are the soldiers of the blood, are removed from the parent. And then those T cells are genetically re-engineered with a new gene that contains a specific protein by a lab to find and kill cancer cells. The re-engineered attacker cells are multiplied into millions and then put back in or infused back into the patient or the parent while they continue to multiply. And that these T cells recognize and kill the cancer cells and help guard against recurrence. So then we'll create another bag of blood soup, only this time using regular sized marshmallows, talking about these are the re-engineered white blood cells. So this is a great way to discuss the use of immunotherapy and its effect on the cancer cells. So just another twist. So some strategies for parents to encourage their child to express their feelings. Parent and child playtime. So a lot of times this gets kind of lost, right? The parents are so wrapped up in survival, right? And what am I supposed to do with these last moments of my life? And how am I going to talk to my child? I'm really worried about my child. When really it just comes back to what, again, what we already know is play. Just having that parent-child playtime. No, just focus on them. Let's do what they want to do a little bit each day. Scheduled family activities. Maybe that looks like movie night every week or game night, just depending on how the parent's feeling, but having something scheduled together. And it just, maybe just the immediate family too. Sometimes with end of life or terminal illness, a lot of other family and friends are wanting to come around, and really there just needs to be some set time just for the immediate family. Concepts of being present. Gosh, this is even like parents without, or anybody without an illness, phones, right? Cell phones. That's not being fully present. So if you're going to spend time with your teen, with your child, putting your phone away, have them put their phone away, and no distractions, no getting up to do laundry or cook dinner or check your phone or whatever, but just having that time to just sit and be together, doing something that the child or teen truly wants. Practice empathy, and then remembering that the child or teens need their social support. They need their friends, right? And this includes social media. I know there's so much negative association with social media, but sometimes that's what the teens especially need to connect with their friends that way. And for parents to model behavior. So if the parent's angry, really mad about something, taking deep, slow breaths, or crying, and it's okay to cry, and labeling that, and, I'm feeling really sad because I'm gonna miss watching you get married one day, and that just makes me cry, and I want you to know it's okay to cry too. And then including in their schedules creative time. So music, drawing, building, right? These are all outlets, and teaching them those healthy coping skills. And then knowing when to seek external support, and that is okay to get some more counseling. So another activity idea, this is one of my favorites that I love. You could do this one of two ways. So you could either do it with a worry, or you could do it with a feeling. So and this is a great family activity, so blow up balloons, have each family member have 2 or 3 balloons each, and have them write on it with a Sharpie, talk and say first, if they're comfortable with sharing, what their worry is or what their strong feeling is that they've been experiencing, writing it on the balloon, and then sharing something that helps them when they feel this way, and maybe sharing with others in the room, the loved one, what they can do to help them when they're having this emotion. And then the fun part, stomping on it is great if they can, or if the balloon is going everywhere, stabbing it. So, first, this is so good because first we're able to get that feeling out, and then we're able to do something physical that's healthy about it. And these activities usually end in laughing and having fun. So this is a great one to bring together. So with teens, right, they can kind of be a whole nother category of their own. And again, these are all things that we know, and all of these things apply to the initial conversation, but we keep it in this presentation because it's just so important. It's good to have important and good to have that reminder. Inform, provide information about the medical terminology, equipment, and procedures, right? Use scientific language. So I can't tell you how many teens I know have told me, like, the other family members are treating them like a child. They're not telling them what's going on. But a lot of these teens now are going to the doctor with their parents. They're sitting in on these virtual doctor sessions with their parents. When they're hearing all this and they want to be a part of the process. So it's hard. They want to be treated like an adult, right? But still have very childlike behaviors sometimes. Engage their understanding and their feelings. Validate. I understand this has got to be really frustrating for you. I see that you're trying really hard to be a part of this process. And normalize the experience. It's okay to feel really angry and confused right now. Answer any questions that they have. Clear up any misconceptions. The misconceptions don't only happen with the little ones. We see it a lot with the teens too. So clearing up those misconceptions. Again, we keep saying it, right? Be honest. And then knowing that silence is okay. I think for a lot of us, it's so hard. You want to fill that silence, but knowing that it's okay. And again, it's okay to say, that's a really good question. I don't know the answer. I wish I did. Maybe we can try and find out. So again, silence, and it's okay to say, I don't know. With technology. So it is important to monitor internet usage. I know, especially since everybody's been isolated this past year, teens especially have been spending a lot more time in their rooms, the door closed, on their phone, right? Social media, searching things. And so just to monitor that and try and be on top of that, acknowledge, I get that, I know that there's a lot on there that they're going to Google it, right? They're going to Google it no matter what. You tell them not to, they're going to. And so I know you're going to go look this up. There's a lot of information. Anyone could put anything on the internet, and it's not all accurate. So then maybe providing them with accurate websites. So instead of saying, don't look anything up, give them what's okay to look up. So giving them information on what websites are good to look to, or maybe finding them a teen group. There's lots of teen groups out there for teens that have parents with Huntington's, how to connect with other teens virtually. So putting a positive spin on the technology usage. So for this last little portion here, we want to play a little video. This is a family that's gone through our program, and it's just talking about the importance of talking to their child, to their teen. Do you have a question, Missy?
Deanna, you could hold that for just a sec. Before we transition, you covered a lot about talking with families and children and engaging them, but a question came through. I'm just going to ask it to see if you have anything else you want to add. It says, hello, I work in an adult setting with children of adult patients. Sometimes when I work with families before and after they have had these conversations, I have parents or caregivers tell me their child is the kind of kid who keeps everything to themselves and doesn't talk about how they're doing or coping. This is most frequent with teens. What are some ways to work with kids, teens like this, the ones I guess that are holding it in, and encourage them to have some emotional expression, but not force it?
Sure. Gosh, that's such a great question, right? Thank you for asking that. I feel like I hear that all the time. And yeah, I think it probably is true. There are a lot of teens that do hold it in, but a lot of the times it's mostly with the parents. What I find is when I'm meeting with these teens, they are opening up more through activities that we're doing, right? Like talking about, this is what other kids have said they have felt, or what they have been thinking. Have you felt any of these same ways too? Yeah, and they'll start listing it that way. So just remembering to say, other teens have told me blah, 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 blah. Other teens have said, and going that way. But I do, with parents, I do say, yeah, yes, we see that a lot with teens, that they do hold it in, and sometimes they don't want to share that with the parents. And what we find a lot with the teens, especially, right, is that they want to be with their peers. If it's easier for them to pretend that it's not really happening, and I don't want to talk about it with you because it's too upsetting, it's too sad. And if I don't talk about it with you, then it's not really happening. And so, yeah, it's finding other outlets for them to express their feelings.
I was just going to add what you just said, Deanna, is helping parents recognize that talking about it isn't what every teen needs or wants to do, and helping them just recognize the other outlets of expression that might allow the teen to express what's happening emotionally without having to put it into words. So reframing in that way. Should we go ahead and start the video? Can you see the video? I'm just double checking. Okay, great. I'll go ahead.
Thank you.
Our discussions with Ania, initially, she's very curious, and she doesn't like to not know what's going on, or else she kind of gets really anxious. And so I knew that this wasn't something that I could just not talk to her about, that I really had to figure out some way to that's age appropriate, that's not scary for her, to kind of tell her what's going on. Immediately, I kind of reached out to her teachers to kind of let them know what was going on, and they forwarded that to the counselor, and the counselor told me about Wonders and Worries in order to kind of help me figure out how to tell her in a way that's helpful for her, that doesn't make her immediately scared that something's going to happen to him tomorrow, that anything she was feeling, that she could just come to either me or Jose. One of our first conversations, when Jose came back from the hospital, she did ask me whether her daddy was going to die. And I wasn't expecting that question that soon, but thankfully I had already gone through the Wonders and Worries information. And so I felt, equipped to actually answer that question. But I did tell her that, this is what's going on with him now. He's had the surgery. They're going to do chemotherapy. We've had the discussions before about death, and that happens to everyone. But right now, that's not something that the doctors have told us that's what's happening here. So then that kind of eased her. And I said, so we need to focus on, what's ahead for daddy. That's chemo. Let's talk about what that's going to look like for him. Except for that first initial time, right after Jose came back from the hospital, she really hasn't asked me that question. So
it comes up probably not as much as it did at the beginning. I think she just needs some reassurance initially that daddy's not going to die tomorrow. She's like, well, if you don't do this, could you die? If this happens, could you die? And I was like, well, yeah, it's possible I could die. And she understands that someday I'm going to die, just whether it's from cancer or just having to be 90 years old, and it's that time.
We really tried to tell her what she can expect to see. Maybe expect that his hair is going to fall out, or maybe expect he's going to be tired, so that she isn't scared like every moment, like, oh my gosh, that's different, that's something wrong. Maybe, his health is worse than what they're telling me.
Yeah. And then kind of out of that grew, she had lots of questions. So we just set aside time, usually, once a week, where we would talk about, she could ask whatever questions she wanted or whatever been bugging her. And
we called it Cancer Fact Friday. So, because we kind of set up, Fridays might be a good time to do that.
Some of the first things we did was like looking up YouTube videos on cancer. We started with that. This is cancer, and lots of videos on how cancer cells spread and how they develop. And so then I think it lessened her anxiety overall.
The best advice I would give to other parents is to be honest with your child about what's going on, because imagine what that child is going through. I mean, they don't understand the large word medical terms. They don't know what's going on. Hospitals are intimidating if they've been there. So for you as a parent to come to them, with safety and love, and to kind of tell them what's going on, that's like the best you can do for that child, I believe. And to share, because they have to share in this experience with us, because we're a family.
Okay, give me a minute while sorry, I'm gonna exit this somehow. Okay, here we go. and get back to the presentation. I'm gonna reshare my screen. Let's see if I can do this way. Okay. Oh, sorry about that, everybody. Let me get to I thought I did from current slide, but I'm on the wrong slide. So I just love their ability to really articulate how they've gone about this as a family. And this is a video that's available for all of you to share with, if you're working with a family and you feel like these parents' words would help a parent that you're working with. There's a link right on our website, so you're always welcome to use that video. So we want to shift now to focusing on some of these ongoing things. Deanna did an amazing job of talking about, how can we help children and teens understand what's happening. So I want to shift and talk about how can we help families create this new normal. We often hear about, and families hear about, it's a new normal. You have to find your new normal as you've got this diagnosis and this ongoing situation. And so we really broke down, what does normal mean? And how can we kind of take those pieces apart and help parents understand that foundation of normal so they can have that strong foundation as they go through different phases and stages. So some synonyms for normal: typical, expected, habitual, accustomed, ordinary, natural. And so we were thinking about, well, what does that really mean and what are those components? So predictability is a component of normal, or building a new normal. Stability is a component of building that new normal. And then when we think about something being ordinary or natural, I think about, and kind of that child life brain thinks about fitting in. Do I fit in with my environment, my current situation, my surroundings, and belonging? And so how do we help parents create this new normal for themselves, for their children, for their families? We certainly know that serious illness disrupts the family's normal routine or their prior routine. It also disrupts their roles and their resources. So starting to think more about that foundation for the new normal with predictability, stability, and belonging. This schedule, and Deanna talked about schedules, and it's so important. This is actually a picture of an actual schedule from one of our staff members early in the pandemic, trying to kind of wrangle in a new normal in their household with 4 children and both parents working and all kids doing school. And so I think the pandemic taught all of us maybe what it's like to completely have your day-to-day routines upended. And so as child life specialists, of course, we can guide parents in thinking about how can you create a new routine. And sometimes that routine is just for the week. Sometimes it's for, maybe for a season, the next several months. And then having kind of those plan B routines when the routine that we've set is disrupted, because that happens obviously with ongoing treatments and unpredictable medical situations. A reliable support system. So I'm going to talk more about this and share a couple activity ideas, but the support system will change. It will normally ebb and flow, and that's something else that can be helpful, I have found, to normalize for parents when they're like, my children don't have support around this. Just to recognize that as children go through, they start a new school year, they start a new school, a family moves, friends move away. Children are, regardless of whether there's an illness in the family, they're having to adapt and adjust and create new support systems along the way. So just helping parents be intentional around that and help them kind of hone in on, what do I need to look for? How do I assess what my child's support system is currently? And then that belonging, and thinking about children and teens being able to connect with their peers, in just the typical ways that any child or teen needs to connect, and then being able to connect with their peers who can understand on some level what's happening with their family situation. So one activity that you may or may not be familiar with that we we really love for assessing the support system. And this is something a parent could do with a child, or we can do with children and teens. It's just to assess the people in their world. And you could use a worksheet like this, or it could just be a blank piece of paper and kind of drawing who are the people in your world. But what's unique about going through it this way is really honing in on how different people can help us in different ways. And thinking about, of course, there's those people that I love and who love me, who are people that I trust, who are people I can talk to, who are people I can hang out with and have fun with. They may or may not check the other boxes, but I kind of have that sense of play and that opportunity to escape when I'm with them. Who are people who help me, and that may be in very tangible ways. And then leaving space and opening up permission to talk about the people who aren't as helpful, or maybe certain things that they may do that aren't as helpful. And so you can use any assortment of stickers or symbols, and for younger children you wouldn't need all of these categories, but it just gives some idea about how to help children and teens think about and identify and then assess kind of gaps in their support system, and then help them and their families think about how can they fill those gaps. Another thing is just simple support plans. You can help families create their own, and thinking about different seasons, different moments, kind of, it could be a week-long support plan. So right now what we're seeing with our families in the Central Texas area, now that summer's in full swing, most things are up and running again in San Antonio, Houston, Austin. So summer camps are happening, kids activities are happening. And just thinking about for children who maybe have not been away from home and they have a seriously ill parent at home that maybe they've been able to stay in pretty close communication with, it may be really challenging for that child or teen to go away for a week for a sleepaway camp, or even to be gone every day for a day-long day camp. So having a support plan in place, thinking through with the entities in that group, the caregivers at that camp, and with that child and that teen, thinking about who can you call, who can you talk to, who knows what's happening in my family. So just helping parents recognize it, different phases and seasons and stages, really thinking about what is a plan for my family. So peer relationships, of course, we know that they are so crucial, and in an ideal world, children and teens would have the opportunity to come together with other children and teens who also have parents with ongoing chronic or incurable illnesses, but that's not always possible. But we have some fun photos here of some of our groups that were happening pre-pandemic, our teen group and a younger school age group. But the key is to really guide parents through thinking about age-appropriate activities that their children are involved in, and of course honing in and helping parents hone in on that individual child's interests and unique personality and characteristics, and for parents to really be able to think about their bandwidth. It is not uncommon for us to talk with families, and parents have that sense of guilt of, I need to allow my child to be in all the activities that they were in before this illness, and we can be that voice to say, it's okay to not have them be in all of those activities. What's important is that they have some activities. And so parents first determining what is their bandwidth for getting them to the activities, to paying for those activities, all of that, and then giving some choices for the teen or child to choose from. They absolutely need permission to be children. Opportunities to connect, which is what we're talking about. But if they don't have a group that they can connect with around the illness, if they just have one friend that they can talk with, who they feel like can at least understand on some level, a friend who could come to their house and will see the oxygen tanks or the wheelchairs or the various medical equipment, and they're okay with having that friend around. So helping parents hone in with their children around those things and just helping them think through. And then understanding that as they grow and develop, this will grow and change for all children, that's true, but certainly as things shift and change with the illness situation. This quote is kind of blurry, but it's a quote from one of our kiddos it's a 10-year-old in one of our school age groups. And I'm gonna look over here to read it because I can read it on this side, but it says, "Wonders and worries helped me because I could talk to other kids who were going through the same thing I was. It helped me understand what my mom was going through. I tried to talk to my friends, but they didn't understand." So unlikely places support can be found, and we love helping families find those unlikely places and helping children and teens find, those unlikely places. So this photo is one of my very favorites from the pandemic and virtual support that we've been providing. This on the right is our staff member, Francine. She's one of our child life specialists in San Antonio, and she was working with a little girl, and she had sent her on a scavenger hunt and asked her to bring back something that has been helping her cope. And this little girl brought this, I'm going to call it creepy, stuffed animal, and popped him into the screen. And of course, you see Francine's reaction. But then the little girl went on to describe that she had had the opportunity to go to the Goodwill and was able to pick something out. And she saw the stuffed animal and I think felt bad for it, thought nobody's going to take this stuffed animal home with them, so I want to. And she named it Sleep Deprivation, probably based on how his eyes look. And it's become a beloved coping tool for her, just a stuffy that she can talk to and hug and cuddle with when she needs that extra support. So I just love this example of we don't know what children will come up with. Usually on their own, they find those things, and then of course we can help them look. So I want to highlight what we have found are some of the key times that are challenging for children and teens as they're coping with a parent with an incurable illness. I'm just going to highlight them here, and then I'm going to go in a little more in depth on several of them. But what I think is so beneficial in our role is that we can see around corners. We can kind of see ahead where parents aren't able to do that. They're certainly not able to do that with an incurable illness situation. And many aren't able to do that, which is kind of the normal ebb and flow of child development because they don't have that background. So the key times that we see that are challenging are separation from the parents, whether those are expected or unexpected, changes in the parent's medical condition. And sometimes that's gradual and the parent may not recognize what the child is recognizing or maybe reacting to, or it might be sudden. It could be a sudden change. Then just the developmental growth, that ongoing growth, the cognitive, physical, social, emotional growth that we know about, and how new stages equal new awareness and new questions and new challenges and a need for new mastery. And then any time that the child or teen doesn't have the coping tools, the insufficient or inaccessible coping tools, because likely something in those above three categories has shifted. So with separation, here's a couple of the books that we love, you may or may not be familiar with. If you're not, The Kissing Hand and The Invisible String are wonderful books for separation with young children, preschoolers, and young school agers. Paper chains, we love to guide families in creating paper chains for each link in the chain representing a day that the separation is expected, and then having some on the end for just kind of preparing for, we can't always know how many days, daddy's going to need to be at the hospital. So let's just add a few in case it extends longer. And then the child can cut a link off each day to kind of count down. And then they could write on that link if they wanted something special that happened that day or something they want to be sure that their parent knows about that day to share at some point. Or if the parent's able to, the parent could write a little message to the child in each link as the chain is being created. Reading together, via video or phone, or recording books for the child to have, a traveling teddy bear or traveling any kind of a thing. So the child may not be able to visit the parent if the parent's separated in some way, but maybe another adult is able to go back and forth. And so that teddy bear or that toy, I remember a family, they had a car, this little car, a Hot Wheel was what their son had picked out, and that Hot Wheel would go with mommy when she would see daddy at the hospital, then it would come back and spend the night with the little boy. And they could send messages back and forth and hugs and kisses that way. And then just a t-shirt from the parent who they're separated from, putting it over a pillow as something to hold. Snapchat streaks, this is something that one of our families came up with. The dad was going through a bone marrow transplant, and the teen daughter, an older teen daughter, would Snapchat a picture of her in the morning drinking her coffee and reading whatever she was reading. And so the dad would Snapchat back something in his hospital room and maybe the nurse who was caring for him that day. And then of course, FaceTime or video chats. So developmental growth and change. We can certainly play a huge role in helping parents understand and kind of, like I said, seeing around corners or preparing them for what might come next with that developmental trajectory for their child or teen, and absolutely helping them recognize that children and teens they're growing and changing ongoing all the time. And so they might reach a place where they're like, everything's going really well and my child's coping well and they seem to be doing well, and then we'll get a call, what's happened? All of a sudden my child's really clingy, or they won't separate, or they're really anxious, or they're frustrated. Or so then one of the first questions we may ask is just kind of honing in on what might have changed developmentally and helping them understand that, and going back to many of the things Deanna was talking about, revisiting, maybe they have new questions, they've had some cognitive growth and they're thinking about the illness situation in new ways. Helping parents really understand their child's unique temperament that really doesn't change. I mean, it will grow and develop, but it's going to be similar throughout that child's lifetime typically. And so just helping them kind of understand and recognize, what is this child's temperament and another child in my family's temperament. And then always helping parents think about, how their children are expressing themselves emotionally, and helping them think of new ways to do that, especially as they grow and change. And then assessing and honing in on their stress response and the coping tools that they're utilizing, or those that they might need to build. So a couple of activities that we love, focusing on control and helping children and teens identify what's in their control and what's outside of their control. The activity on the left is just a simple hand tracing and writing on the hand what's in the child or teen's control, and then on the outside what is outside of their control. And then they can cut the hand out and kind of shred the other parts or rip it up, or they could keep it all as one. And then the video game example could be just a drawing of a video game, but the console, so let's say that's like an Xbox One, that represents that kind of that source of hope or power that child or teen has, and them identifying what is that for them. And then the connectors, and maybe it's Bluetooth connections, maybe it's just like a blank space, but you're talking about the Bluetooth connection. That's the support system, the people that they identify that are supporting them. And then the controller itself are all the tools that they have within their control to help them cope. Another activity is this then, now, and tomorrow activity that can be great for middle schoolers or high schoolers, where you're really stepping them through thinking about what was life like before the illness situation or the injury. It could be a traumatic injury that's happened. What is it like in the present? And then what do I think it might be like in the future, or what are my hopes and wishes for the future? And then we've just included some prompts here that we might use, or questions, just for some children and teens, like I would say middle schoolers, school agers would have a little harder time with this, more of an abstract activity, but they just jump in and they kind of have an idea. And others, we want to just give them some prompts and help them think about, what was your life like? What did it look like? What do you remember? What jumps out at you before your parents' diagnosis? What do you think it will look like in the future? What changes would you like to see? That kind of thing. So I want to focus on teens a little bit, so pre-pandemic, we have an ongoing monthly teen group that's continued through the pandemic virtually, but we did like a little kind of a separate little focus group to get input from our teens and just kind of understand from them, what did they find was most helpful from adults, and what did they find was least helpful from adults? And so these are the things that they highlighted. Getting help with a specific task or need, adults initiating opportunities to connect and not leaving that on the teen. Adults who understand but don't overreact. So adults being able to regulate themselves. The teens would talk about adults not being dramatic. That was hard for them. Adults who are able to encourage the teen to express their feelings, but don't require that. They're not pushing it, but they're encouraging it. And then expressing the belief in the teen, that their belief, their recognition that the situation is, whatever it may be, that it's challenging, but recognizing that they believe that the teen can cope, has what they need to get through. and avoiding cliche phrases like everything will be fine. And avoid putting responsibility on the teen to reach out. And the teens talked a lot about this, that adults will say, I'm here for you, you can come to me. And they said, that's not helpful. Instead, it was really helpful if an adult said, I'd love to take you to band practice every Wednesday. Or how about on Fridays, we go get ice cream together. And so the adult initiates and focuses in on something specific. And so kind of the last piece here is just thinking about, how do we help children and teens find those coping tools and help parents find them. We always want to be sure that we're helping them just even understand why what are we talking about when we're talking about stress and coping, using books and games and various activities, looking at the resources in their environment, looking at their internal resources and what they're interested in and drawn to, their personalities. That we, of course, are role modeling, but that their parents or other peers and caregivers in their world are role modeling and using coping tools, and then empowering them with choices. Okay, so we want to spend a few minutes now shifting and focusing on memory making. And I'm going to start with stepping through a research study that's in the works right now. It was a pilot study that we did that was focusing on supporting families who were dealing with an advanced cancer diagnosis. And basically, let me give you, for those of you that may not be as familiar, at Wonders and Worries, we have what we call our core curriculum, which is a 6-session curriculum that we love to go through. It's very individual, it's very flexible, and we can individualize it. But we go through getting to know the child or teen, focusing on the illness, helping them express their feelings, and then helping them build healthy coping tools. Well, what we were finding as a staff is that when it was an advanced cancer diagnosis, that we would use the core curriculum, but different staff members were adding different things or doing different things or extending it out in different ways because they were recognizing this is an ongoing, incurable illness situation. So we said, let's come together and let's tweak our core curriculum in ways that we think might work well for families with advanced cancer, and let's do a little pilot study around it. So the goal was to have 20 families. We actually didn't end up with that because the pandemic hit. I think we ended up with 14 families that fully completed. But we had a lot of learning, and we'll have more learning as we get more data back. But we're continuing to utilize this curriculum and putting it into practice and learning from it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the tweaks that we made. But some of the things as we were going into it that we recognized that we wanted to really hone in on for families with advanced cancer. We wanted to be sure that we were trying to facilitate that connection with the surviving parent. If the ill parent were to die, we wanted to be sure that the child had a strong connection with another caregiving adult. So there may be some things we could do to facilitate that, along with the ongoing connection with the ill parent. We wanted to support the parent's ability to communicate, which is what Deanna had focused on. And then we wanted to weave in throughout memory making, legacy building activities throughout. And I want to pause here just to say, because I'm going to talk about some memory making legacy activities. I had the privilege of attending at the ACLP virtual conference recently, a presentation some of you may have attended on the legacy experiences and perceptions of bereaved family members. It was, there were multiple presenters, but Jennifer Bowles from Vanderbilt and Jenna Dunbar from Johns Hopkins. It was really a wonderful light bulb moment. They had done an amazing job of gathering feedback from bereaved families and focusing specifically on just kind of understanding what those families' takeaways were. And it was very, very rare for a family to mention like a tangible object, like, a handprint or a thumbprint or a mold. Instead, they were really focused on those intangibles. And so I'm just going to mention that as I'm talking about some of these memory making things that we've woven into this curriculum. So adjustments from our core curriculum. We wanted the time, kind of that initial time when we're more closely connected with the family, to be extended out, to be a longer period of time. We don't end after the curriculum. Wonders and Worries does continue with monthly opportunities to connect, and we can check in. But there is a shift. There's a transition where it's kind of less intense. And so the goal here was to kind of stay in that more, connected space longer. So our thought was, let's have sessions 4 through 7. So we added a session. Our core curriculum is usually 6 sessions. So we added a session with advanced cancer curriculum, and we extended every other week. Normally our sessions were weekly when they can be. We're very flexible. Well, what we found is it didn't quite work that way, where we were like, we're going to have weekly sessions here, and then we're going to go to every other week. Really what we found, it was just a mindset shift of, we want to skip weeks along the way and extend out this time frame. And we just do that within the family schedule and kind of how does it match up best. Usually the first couple sessions we try to have weekly, just for forming that relationship, and especially with young children. And then we might shift to every other week. Another thing that we added was inclusion of an at-home activity with the parents, where we weren't present, but we were encouraging families to be able to come together and have family time. And we were equipping parents whenever possible. And so initially we had this idea that maybe the children could choose something that they wanted to do with the parent, and then the parent could implement it. Well, we fairly quickly realized that was too high of an expectation for families that are dealing with ongoing illness in their home. I worked with a family of 4 kiddos, 2 sets of twins, so twin girls and twin boys. And this was early on as we were kind of learning about this process. And the twin girls wanted to bake with their mom, and they wanted to kind of learn from their mom. And the twin boys were younger. They wanted to learn about engines and all sorts of things, cars and motors, from their dad. Well, the mom was able to implement. She was the healthy parent, but she was also very structured. And but the dad, who was the one dealing with the illness, it was really difficult for him to do these things with the boys. And so we realized we want to be sure that we're not setting families up for any added guilt or disappointment. And so where we kind of landed is with this family bowl activity. It doesn't need to be this activity, but what we learned about this family bowl activity is it's a kit. Everything's right there. We can send it to the family. When they find the time, they can open it up. They don't have to gather materials, and they can have this opportunity to come together as a family and have family time. Kind of going back to the tangible versus intangible memory making, this does create a tangible item, but the wonderful thing about it is you can really guide a parent into thinking about, as you're creating this on these little circles, you can all think about characteristics of each other, personality characteristics, and maybe talk about how some of you are alike and some of you are different. And that creates that lasting connection where whether this bowl is there or not, that child can remember, oh yeah, I remember when we were talking about sense of humor, and my dad and I both have a similar sense of humor. That creates that lasting connection should that parent die. The other thing that we added was inclusion of a family session that we are present for. And I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. So actually, let me skip ahead. I'm going to talk about the family session that we're present for in just a minute, but let me give a few other ideas for activities that families can do at home, or we can do with them, of course. Or a child can start with us in a session and then take it home, and the family can continue at home. So we call these strength garden activities, or strength rock garden activities, where they can think about the strengths that each person in the family brings. And this is also a great opportunity to talk about different roles that each person has, and maybe reset roles if they're realizing things kind of aren't working how they need to as a family. And so, we can talking about each family member can have multiple flowers focused on them that focus on their strengths, or multiple rocks, and then they can add to them, they can take away. The rocks can lend themselves to also, and the flowers, to capturing memories. This was a great day today. We had this experience. Or it can be a child has an experience that they want to share with a parent. So they put that on the rock. And identifying a space or place where this can be in the home to add to, or outside the home. And I want to mention something about the garden that you see in the upper right. This is one of our client families who have had this strength garden for many years, and they use it as their place to come together when they do their family meetings. And they'll talk about new strengths and kind of changes and new roles as they've gone through. They've been dealing with a chronic incurable illness for, I think I've known them for 6 years now. So the family activity from our advanced cancer curriculum and this study that we've done, this is, I think, the favorite from all of our team members, and it's my favorite. We bring the family together in our office. And we weren't able to do this for a while with the pandemic, but we are able to do it again. And when with the pandemic, we could do it virtually. So we could join virtually and they could be at home and we could send supplies. But we're helping to facilitate, but we're allowing the family to be the family and the parents to be the parents. And so they're creating something together as a family. And the handprint canvas has been something that has worked really well. But of course we give options and the family can choose. And then we also have a game. We have giant Jenga and questions, so the family plays the game together. We don't play the game, we're not doing the canvas, we're just here to facilitate. And then we actually didn't say, take a picture of the family at the end of this activity and share it with them. But we naturally did that, and we're so glad that we did, because what we have found is we have been able to help these families capture this moment, whether they keep this handprint canvas or not. And what I want to add, and my takeaway from the conference session, is I want to add giving permission to parents whenever there is a tangible item, and giving permission to children and teens. It is okay if you choose not to keep this item at some point. The picture on the right is a family where the college son, he's the boy on the left, he was able to come back and participate in his family time with them. You know, we wouldn't want a college age kiddo or any kiddo to feel like I need to take this canvas with me to college and make sure it's always on my wall. And so giving permission that you don't have to take the tangible with you. You can do whatever you decide to do with it. You could take a photo of it if you decide you're not going to keep it, but you have that memory, and they have also the photograph of their family together. So a few things around teenagers and things that we think about when we're doing any type of activity, but certainly any type of legacy activity. We want to think about the appeal, and really thinking about maybe more sophisticated supplies and a wider variety of supplies, more colors and, you know, nicer paints and brushes. We also want to be sure that we're presenting the activity in terms of other teens I've worked with have really liked this activity, or other teens I've worked with have really found this activity beneficial. You know, I'm old. I'm definitely old to a teenager. So if I say I really like this activity, that's probably going to make them think, well, if you like it, I'm probably not going to like it. The presentation matters, and we really want to get ourselves into that flexible mindset. And the team may have modifications, and that's great, and we want to go with it if we possibly can. We want to be able to be messy and be active. Yesterday, as I was thinking about this presentation, I had on white jeans, and I was thinking I would not want to wear my white jeans to a session with a teen where we're painting, because that could turn into splatter painting or who knows what, and I don't want to be distracted by my jeans and not wanting to get paint on them. So just be in that mindset. I want to be able to be active, flexible, messy if needed. So a modification that I want to share with y'all, this just happened like 2 weeks ago. One of our staff members emailed out to our team. She had kind of set up to do a memory box with the team, and the teen came up with her own modification. And so this is a teen whose dad was in a tragic car accident and had a traumatic brain injury and has been forever altered, very likely. So what she was able to articulate was that she was grieving most all the future moments that she wouldn't have with her dad. So she wanted to turn this activity into a tomorrow box. And the idea is that she would be able to capture or write or share and hold in the box things that have happened. You know, maybe today she did something that she wanted to share with her dad. And this could be that portal to do that. Whether she could actually tell him or he was actually able to, you know, understand and connect with her around it, or if she could just put that in the tomorrow box, and that could be her way to connect with her dad and share what she had done. And we all love this idea, and so we're going to file it away and have it be something that we can offer to other teens who are maybe trying to think about what they want to do. What she had ended up doing is decorating the outside of her box with photos and kind of memories that she had with her dad, and then on the inside she had bright colors and floral prints to think about like the future connection and moments. She was still able to have moments with her dad. They were just very different than before. And then this is just kind of a list of some of the things that come to our minds when we think about legacy activities. Of course, the written notes from parent to child and back. And one little suggestion that I've carried with me is if a young child, like let's say a 3-year-old, draws a picture and gives that to the parent could write on the back a little more about their reaction or how special that picture is to them. And so that kind of adds to that that takeaway, or that child can look back in 10 years or 20 years if it's still there. So question boxes or interviews. Family word art. So this website we've loved during the pandemic, wordart.com, but we'll use it far beyond. It's very user-friendly, it's free, and families could do this together, or a child or teen could do it in their own, activity and then share it. They can choose different shapes, different colors, and it could just be an electronic, or it can be printed out. And then, of course, memory journals, and then listing favorite things. So this can be something that can be somewhat easy, like doesn't require much, just a pencil and paper, and the child or teen could ask their parent, or somebody else could just start to capture, or the parent themselves, the ill parent, could start to capture. Here's some of my favorite books. Here's some of my favorite restaurants, my favorite foods, my favorite movies, my favorite music, my favorite artists. And then this creates a lasting connection where that child or teen, at any point, if the parent dies, they can say, you know what? I want to feel that connection with my mom today. I want to watch a movie that she loved, or read a book that was one of her favorites. All right, so I'm going to turn it back over to Deanna.
All right, so now shifting to how can we help them when death is near? Should I tell my child that their loved one is dying? So many times I have heard, I don't want to tell them. I don't want them to know, because they're just going to worry and get upset more. I hear that so often. But, in case we haven't said it and you guys didn't already know, that honest, age-appropriate information, right? Like, again, it's the same thing we've been talking about over and over and over. With the age-appropriate piece, that's something that comes very naturally to us as professionals, but remembering to educate parents on that. To them, it may not be as natural. So what does that mean? What information do I give? Explaining what is happening with their loved one's body. So are they not eating anymore? Are there some new tubes that are placed? What are those tubes doing? Sleeping. Are they sleeping more? Is that normal? Is that what we're going to start seeing more? Is there labored breathing, or maybe like gasping, or what is it that they're going to see that's different? With illnesses that can't be cured, explain that there is no way to get rid of or stop the illness. And talking about the illness could cause the body to stop working. Doctors believe that their loved one may die soon. Again, talking to parents about the importance of using the word die. And again, okay to say, I don't know. So this might be a good place to talk about hospice. If the parent or loved one is going on hospice, talking to them about that, it doesn't mean that their loved one is giving up, but it means that the meds they've been taking have not been working. And again, going back to what I just said, that they won't get any better. They will not be receiving any more medication to help get rid of cancer, but taking medication that will provide comfort so that they're not hurting, not in pain. And then talking about the hospice piece, if it's at home, maybe there's going to be this new hospital bed. Where is it going to be placed? Maybe there's new nurse or therapy coming in and out daily, different people coming in, what their jobs are, preparing them for that and what it's going to look like. So really quick here, I'm thinking, we have this video, and I know we're running short on time, so I'll talk fast after, but this is such a powerful video. It's very touching. And it's about a dad that's talking to about having the conversation with his daughter.
Hi, my name's Kevin Hines. My daughter is Kira Hines. Her mom recently passed away due to breast cancer. Well, it's a natural instinct to protect your kid. You always want to do that, anything comes at them, you jump in front of it, but this is one of the things I couldn't jump in front of. I had to tell her. I knew if I told her and kept her in the loop, we were gonna have a lot of trust between us, which is the most important part, right? Because going down this road, especially if anything did happen, she knew that she can count on me to tell her the truth and let her know what was going on. There's never a good time. School was about to end. She had the STAR test. Her birthday was coming up. My birthday was coming up. It just got to the point where I didn't know what to do. So I found wonders and worries, and I remember talking to Kim on the phone, and I wanted to keep hope that things are going to get better. So you're stuck in that position of, do I lay it all on the line? Do I kind of sugarcoat it a little bit? But then what if something happens tomorrow? And that's the thing you have to think about, because when you're in a situation like this, you want your kid or kids, for that matter, to spend as much time you possibly can with that parent before something happens. I mean, I went from going nuts to having a plan, you know, and it went so much smoother after I talked to them. She took it, I won't say good, but, you know, I mean, best we could, but we hugged, we cried, but, you know, we prayed and we said it was going to be all right. It felt better, but it was hard, you know, because she understood what I was saying, but she didn't quite process it yet. You know what I mean? She had time to start preparing herself. She says, what's the percentage that mom's going to pass away? I said, Kira's like, I don't know. I can't give you a percentage. I said, it wouldn't be fair. I said, but just remember, live every day to the fullest you can with your mother. Tell her every day that you love her. I said, write her something right now if you want to. Anything that you feel you have in your heart you want to get off your chest. I said, just say it now. I said, you won't be sorry for it. As a parent, you want to be the one to tell your child what's going on. There's so much information that's out there, and the worst thing in the world that could happen is you get the worst information or the wrong information from other kids, wrong websites. You have to tell your kid the truth, because y'all have to know that y'all are there for each other, and you have to trust one another. I mean, God works in mysterious ways. We all know that, you know, but there's just some times when it's time to call the angels home, you know, and you just don't know when that's going to be. So you have to be honest. You have to be honest.
Wow, right? I feel like that video really speaks for itself. I've seen it several times, and every time it just gets me choked up. It's so powerful, and to hear from a parent themselves. So our next little session, when do I tell my child? All of this also applies to the initial illness education piece as well. But create a plan for the conversation. That's where it helps to maybe write it down and have the parent go through this, the well and sick parent or another adult, but having another adult to do it together, write down what it is you're going to say, what I'm going to say, to be more prepared. And then also it's good to have that other adult there sometimes too. If one of the parents or one of the adults is speaking and gets choked up and can't finish their sentence, that the other adult can kind of step in and finish for them. But knowing that it is okay to cry and it's okay for that other adult to kind of take the lead. Where to have the conversation? In the home or another comfortable private place, and maybe that means in a hospital or in a hospice facility, but not in the car, not in a big public restaurant or where there's a bunch of people around. What time of day is best? Again, maybe, you know, when you're all at home and you have the rest of the day to kind of just not rushing, not go anywhere. So not right before bedtime. Parents, I think a lot think that's a perfect time, but you don't want to do that right before they're going to try to go to sleep. So not before bedtime, not when you're just leaving or in the car, dropping off for school or about to go somewhere. And talk about what changes are going to impact the child. So what day-to-day changes? Who's going to pick them up from school now? Again, it goes back to their basic needs being met, right? Maybe it's Sally from down the street is going to be picking you up from school. Johnny's going to be taking you to baseball practice. You know, maybe it goes back to the at-home hospice. You're going to be seeing a new bed in the home. It might mean there might be some moving around of bedrooms. That happens a lot too, or different family members that are coming to stay. And what changes are evident in the loved one, like maybe the physical changes that they'll see as well. How far into the future is the child focusing? So we know with the younger ones, let's focus on now. So focus on today. What's going to happen today? You don't need to go too far into the future. And then answering the questions. What is the child asking? And that's going to help gauge where you need to go from there as well. When death is near, offer choices for the child to be involved. Kids want to help. They feel like they're out in this whole process and they want to be able to help. And again, that goes back to what I stated earlier. It could be something as drawing a new picture, writing a letter to hang up, maybe the older kids, you know, making a meal, having more cleaning, having water, the simple things. And then it can be helpful for the child to say goodbye. A lot of times parents are like, I don't, you know, it looks like their loved one's going to die soon. I don't think that they should come. I don't think that, you know, we should bring them up there. But children understand best what they can see and touch. So we encourage, if the child or teen wants to say goodbye, wherever that is at, in the hospital, facility, at home, if they want to, that now we encourage them to. If the child is unable to be present or chooses not to be, which again, that is okay. We leave it up to the child or teen if they want to or don't want to be present or say goodbye. But giving them that choice that they still can say goodbye. So they can send a picture, a stuffed animal. So if there's another adult that's going up to the hospital, they could, or wherever they're at, they could send those items or talk over the phone or FaceTime. Even after the loved one has already died, the child can still say goodbye by writing a note, saying a prayer, or flying wish paper. And if you're new to flying wish paper, it's awesome. You can order it on Amazon. It's little small squares, almost like tissue paper material. And you'll write, there's a little pencil it includes, you write on there. You can write your, a little note, a little prayer, a little wish, and then you roll it up. You set it on the piece of cardboard that it comes with and light it with a match or a lighter, and the paper floats up and then like disintegrates into the air. So that's another great way to have some closure, to say goodbye. So children are naturally curious about what happens to a loved one after the loved one's body after death. So, you know, this is where we see that parents are like, my child's playing funeral all the time. They're playing death. If somebody's dying, they're death, they're morbid. It's not morbid, it's normal, it's age appropriate. And so understanding what happens to the body can help children understand the finality of the death. So talking about the body has stopped working. The person can no longer see, hear, move, doesn't feel hungry, lonely, can't eat or go to the bathroom. And then providing information about where the body will go. So, you know, if it's going to a funeral home, talking about the specifics, the little details about going, where they're going to go, what's going to happen to the body, how it's going to be kindly and gently cared for. And then again, giving the child choices. So when possible, you know, if they want to see the body at the funeral home prior to the burial, can't say that, or cremation. So again, just giving all those choices. So going to cremation, quickly talking about it, there is this book that we've used that's no longer in print anymore, What is Cremation? But we like to use this page and this analogy here. So we talk about the body going into a room called a crematory, a room specifically designed for bodies. And when we talk about it, we like to use this glove analogy. So we can actually have a glove here. And so we talk about the hand inside of the glove is life. The hand is the soul, the spirit. The hand in the glove is life, living on earth. But if we remove the glove, remove the hand from the glove, and the glove is the body, the hand removed resembles death. So this is such a great one, talking about, you know, when I die, only my body will be left and it will not feel any pain. That the glove cannot do or feel anything because the life is gone. So this is another great physical example that we like to show, to use. So again, going back to offering options for the child to attend and participate in the funeral. Again, we always get the question, should they go? I don't think they should go to the funeral. It's up to the child. Most of them want to go because they're curious, and to yes, if they really want to go, allow them to, and then allow them to participate. So allowing the child to help in the process. And all of these, some of these can be done before the death occurs if the family starts the funeral or memorial service preparation, and having all together as a family selecting a song, a poem, pictures, food. What are different things that they can do? How can they help decorate? Letting them have choices in that. Maybe the child chooses to blow bubbles after the service, like that's their job. Having a role during the service. They can maybe escort guests down to seats, or maybe handing out programs at the back. And then it's important to have a plan B for younger children. So it's great to have another adult there that might not be as emotionally invested, that could be assigned to the child, that if the child just needs to step out, is just feeling very overwhelmed, and maybe just having a little bag of a few, stress ball, Play-Doh, coloring, just a few little items if the child just needs to step out and play. So that helps to have that adult to be able to do that, and that is okay, that it's okay to do that. And then preparing the child or teen for things that they might witness or what people will say. So this could be, you might see people crying, you might see people wailing, you might see people laughing, and that means that they're thinking about happy memories. So talking about everybody kind of acts a little bit different, and that's okay. And these are things that you might see. And then especially with maybe the older ones, talking about people mean well in what they say, and sometimes it comes across as it could be offensive or make some teens angry because it's not helpful, but that people are trying to say something and they don't know what to say, and they're meaning well. So preparing them for that. So this last page here is just our resources, a lot of the books that we like to use, and some links to some tip sheets and our website that is available for you. And mine and Kim's contact information and references. And then I think we have just a couple minutes for some questions.
Yeah, so I haven't seen any questions come through since that first one I asked, but we'll leave it for just a minute. But I just wanted to say, I am so grateful for our amazing team every day. But today I'm especially grateful to you, Deanna, and you, Kim, for sharing your expertise with us all. This has been fantastic. If anyone does have a last minute question, go ahead and type it in the Q&A, because we're going to be here for a couple more minutes. But if you need to jump off, I just want to let you know that the PDU credit purchase QR code, you can try that. I do have a QR code for our activity book. You probably know already that we sell a soft copy, and we also have a hard copy. So take a look at that. It has 105-ish activities in there, over 100 activities in there, and it's amazing, if I do say so. So take a peek at that. And then our next webinar, we decided that we are going to switch to every other month, so it will be August 20th. And the topic is going to be ethics, and we are going to have a panel of 3, maybe 4 people sharing cases and processing those cases and the decision making and that sort of thing. And again, we are switching to the 1.5 hours. So that will go back to our normal time, to the 12 o'clock to 1:30 Central. I don't see any questions coming through. So again, I just want to thank you, Kim and Deanna, so much for being here. And sharing this with everybody. I know they've taken home lots of thoughts and ideas, and I'm processing things too in my head about what I've heard today. So thank you all out there for joining us, and we hope to see many of you in August. Have a great July.
Thank you, everyone.